method loadNextFlag is called from reset quiz and also after every correct answer to not only load and display the next flag image, but also to create the buttons that represent the guesses that the user can make. So the first thing we do is we go to our quiz countries list and we remove element 0, which is the next the next flag in the quiz, the name of it, and we store that as well in correct answers so that we can compare to that later on. We also clear out the answer text view, and we set the question number text view indicating which question number this is. Next thing we do at line 173 and 174 is we get from the next image name the region name, which is prepended to the file names. So for example, if I go open up North America here, you can see that in front of every file, or every country name rather, we have North underscore America and a dash. So basically what we want to do is grab the front piece of this before the dash, because that's the name of the folder in which the image is located, and we're going to need that to be able to load up the image. So we extract that region name. Then at line 177, we get our asset manager, which is going to allow us to obtain the files in the assets folder. And we create an input stream reference called stream. Now in our try block, we use the open method of the asset manager to specify the full path representing where the image is that we want to load. So it's in the folder called region, whatever that region name is. And again, this is all from the assets folder root that we're working. So it's actually a relative path from that location. So we're going to go into the region folder. The slash character separates the folder name from the file name in this case. The name of the image is going to be included next, followed by the .png. So this assembles the name of the file that we want to load from one of these folders. Then at line 186, we use the drawable classes create from stream static method, and we give it the stream, which is where we read the bytes of the image from, and the name of the image that we're loading as well. And then finally at line 187, we set our drawable on the flag image view to the drawable object that we just created. So this causes us to not only load the image from the file system, but also to display the image on the screen. And if anything goes wrong while doing that, we log that error message. Now, the remainder of this method is geared towards displaying the options that the user can select from in terms of which country this flag represents. So the first thing we do here at lines 195 and 196 is empty out the previous set of answers, if there were any, in the button table layout. So you can see we go to the button table layout and get its child count, which says how many first level views are nested inside of that layout. And of course we have 3 table rows. And for each of those table rows, we get the child at a particular row, particular index, if you will, within the table layout, and we know those items are table rows. So we cast it to type table row, and that way we can call the table row object's remove all views method, which clears out any buttons or any other controls that were in the current table row. The next thing we do at line 198 is shuffle our file names list, and we're going to do that so we get a random set of answers that we can display on the screen. Then at line 201, we find the index of the correct answer within the file name list, and we remove that item from the list and add it to the end of the list. It turns out that once we shuffle the list of items, then what we can do is just take the first several items representing the number of choices the user wants, 3, 6, or 9, and display those on the buttons. And then finally, after we've done that, we'll randomly replace one of those with the correct answer. So we move it to the end of the list to get it out of the way initially. Then at lines 205 and 206, we get a layout inflator. And at lines 209 through 228, we have a for loop that's going to populate the guesses. So the first thing we do is we determine how many rows we're iterating through. Guess rows can be 1, 2, or 3. So we're either going to have 1 iteration, 2 iterations, or 3 iterations of this loop. We get the table row representing the set of guesses we're dealing with right now. It's again either the first row, second row, or third row. And then at line 214 we start an inner loop where we create 3 guesses for the current row. First we inflate our new guess button. Then we get the file name from the file name list. File name list.get row times 3 plus column is going to give us the index of a particular file name that we're going to use as a guess. We set the new guess button's text to the result of calling our own method getCountryName, which I'm going to just scroll down to here. GetCountryName is simply going to receive the string representing the file name, and it's going to return a substring of that in which we get the part of the name after the dash. So the index of the dash plus 1 is the start of the country name, and in which we replace any underscores with spaces. So remember, if a country has multiple words in its name, like Dominican Republic, what we want to get out of this file name is Dominican space REP in this case, or Saint space Lucia, or some similar item, US space Virgin space IS dot for the US Virgin Islands. So we go ahead and pick off the country name. And once we have the country name, we place that on the new guess button. Then we set the listener for the new guess button to guess button listener, which we'll look at in a subsequent video. And we take the current table row and add a view to it, which is the new guess button we just created. Now, after we work our way through this nested for statement and populate the 3, 6, or 9 guesses, then we randomly replace one of those buttons with the correct answer. So we have the row, which is a random integer in the number of rows, the column, which is always a random number from 0 through 2 because there's only 3 columns per row, and then we get the table row, and we get our country name for the correct answer, and we then, for the table row, get the child at a specific column, which we know is a button within that row. So we cast it to type button, and we set the text on one of those buttons at the random row and column that we selected to the new country name, which is the correct answer country name in this case. So now we have 3, 6, or 9 different answers that we can select from, and getTableRow and getCountryName are just utility methods that we've defined to help us with populating those guesses.